My name is Andrea Wallace. I am 32 years old, and last Easter my family tried to give away the only place where my mother still felt alive. Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. Legally. I was sitting at the Easter dinner table in the house on Birch Lane, the same house where my mother used to plant yellow tulips every spring, when my father stood up and announced that he and my stepmother had decided to transfer the family home to my stepbrother Tyler. He said it quickly, like a man reading words he did not write. Then he sat down before anyone could ask questions. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. 18 people sat around the table with forks in their hands, napkins on their laps, and polite smiles frozen on their faces. My stepmother Lorraine looked satisfied. Tyler looked proud. My father looked at his plate. And I looked at the stack of papers beside Lorraine's water glass, because from the far end of the table I could see the letterhead. It was not from a lawyer. It was not from a family trust. It was from a real estate development company. That was the moment I realized they were not giving Tyler the house to preserve it. They were giving it to him so he could sell it. The porch my grandfather painted. The kitchen where my mother measured my height with pencil marks and tiny stars. The upstairs reading room where her perfume used to linger after she died. All of it had a price now. I kept my voice steady when I said, that house belonged to my mother. Tyler smiled at me from across the table like he had been waiting for this exact opening. Andrea, he said, you were never really part of this family anyway. The room went silent in a different way then. Not shocked silent. Dangerous silent. My fork slipped slightly against my plate. I looked at my father, waiting for him to correct Tyler. Waiting for him to say, that is my daughter. Waiting for him to do the one thing he should have done for 25 years. But he only stared at the tablecloth. Then Tyler leaned back and delivered the sentence that changed everything. Ask your mother why. My mother had been dead since I was 7 years old. Lung cancer. Caught too late. She never smoked. She never got enough time. The idea that Tyler would use her name as a weapon in her own dining room made something inside me go cold. Lorraine did not look surprised. That told me more than any confession could have. Then, before I could speak, Grandma Eleanor stood up. She was 78 years old. Bad knees. One hip replaced. The kind of woman who never raised her voice because people had learned to listen before she needed to. She reached into the old brown leather purse she carried everywhere and pulled out a yellowed envelope. The paper looked soft from years of being handled. She placed it on the table between the deviled eggs and the bread basket and said, I have waited 25 years to show you this. Every person at that table stopped breathing. Lorraine's face changed first. Just slightly. Just enough. Fear passed through her expression before she could hide it. Grandma Eleanor looked at Tyler, then at Lorraine, then finally at me. Catherine cannot answer, she said. So I will. Before I tell you what was inside that envelope, you need to understand why that house mattered. My mother, Catherine Wallace, loved that house like it was a living thing. She planted yellow tulips along the front walk every March. She kept books stacked beside the green velvet chair in the upstairs den. She marked every inch I grew on the kitchen doorframe with a pencil line and a star. After she died, my father collapsed into himself. Then Lorraine arrived with casseroles, organized drawers, and a smile that made people call her helpful. Within 2 years, she was living in my mother's house. Within 3, her son Tyler had the better bedroom, her photos replaced my mother's, and my mother's name slowly disappeared from conversation. But the pencil marks stayed. Lorraine never noticed them. Grandma Eleanor did. And for 25 years, she had been carrying proof inside that purse, waiting for the day my family finally pushed too far. The envelope sat in the middle of the Easter table like a live grenade. Nobody touched it. Nobody even seemed willing to breathe too loudly near it. Grandma Eleanor rested one hand on top of the yellowed paper and looked around the room slowly. You all wanted to discuss ownership, she said. So let us discuss ownership. Lorraine recovered first. She always did. My stepmother had spent 25 years mastering the art of appearing calm while steering every conversation exactly where she wanted it to go. Eleanor, she said gently, this is Easter. We do not need to create unnecessary drama. Grandma Eleanor smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. The drama was created when you tried to hand Catherine's house to Tyler. Lorraine's jaw tightened. Across the table, Tyler shifted in his chair. The house belongs to Dad now. Legally? Grandma asked. Perhaps. She tapped the envelope. Morally is a different discussion. I sat perfectly still. Something important was happening, and for the first time in years I did not feel like the only person in the room who could see it. My father looked exhausted. The deeper the conversation went, the more he resembled a man who had spent decades avoiding decisions and suddenly discovered they had all come due at once. Mom, he said quietly. Maybe this is not necessary. Grandma Eleanor turned toward him. Necessary? Her voice remained calm. Robert, your daughter was just told she was never part of this family. Silence. And you said nothing? Nobody moved. My father looked down again. The same way he always had. That silence had shaped most of my childhood. Lorraine making decisions. Tyler taking space. My father looking away. Growing up, I used to think he was choosing them over me. As an adult, I realized something sadder. He was choosing comfort over conflict. The result felt exactly the same. Grandma Eleanor slowly opened the envelope. The paper crackled with age. Lorraine's face lost more color. That reaction did not escape me. It did not escape anyone. Funny, Grandma said. You seem nervous. I am not nervous, Lorraine replied immediately. Good. Grandma removed a stack of folded documents. Then this should not bother you. Tyler laughed. The sound came out forced. What is this supposed to prove? Grandma looked directly at him. That depends on how much your mother told you. The room froze again. Tyler's expression changed. Not much. Just enough. I noticed it because I had spent my entire life watching people in this family carefully. You learn to read tiny shifts when nobody tells you the truth directly. Mom? Tyler asked. Lorraine ignored him. Grandma unfolded the first document and placed it on the table. Do you remember Catherine? She asked suddenly. Nobody answered. I do. Her voice softened. She loved this house more than anyone I have ever known. A memory surfaced immediately. My mother kneeling in the garden with dirt on her hands. Yellow tulips blooming around her. Smiling at me as though the entire world was exactly where it belonged. I had only 7 years with her, but some memories survive longer than entire lifetimes. When Catherine became sick, Grandma continued, she knew there was a chance she would not survive. My chest tightened. I had never heard this story before. My father looked surprised too. Mom, he whispered. You never told me this. Because she asked me not to. Grandma stared at the document. Not yet. The room remained silent. Then she looked at me. Andrea, do you remember the blue music box in the upstairs den? My eyes widened. The one with the ballerina? She nodded. After Catherine died, everyone thought it disappeared. I remembered searching for it. I remembered crying when I could not find it. It was one of the few things that felt connected to my mother. It did not disappear, Grandma said. Your mother hid something inside it. Lorraine suddenly stood up. This is ridiculous. Every eye turned toward her. You are talking about old memories while we are discussing a property transfer. Exactly, Grandma replied. Because the property transfer is why the memories matter. Lorraine looked like she wanted to leave. That alone told me more than any document could. Then Grandma placed a second piece of paper on the table. My father's face drained of color the moment he saw it. "No," he whispered. "What is it?" I asked. Grandma looked at me sadly. "The beginning." She folded her hands over the documents. 25 years ago, your mother discovered something that changed how she saw this family forever. She documented everything. She left instructions. And tonight, because Tyler decided to use her name against you, I am finally going to honor those instructions. For the first time all evening, Tyler stopped looking confident. And for the first time in 25 years, Lorraine looked afraid. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The entire dining room seemed suspended in time. Even the children at the far end of the table had stopped whispering. Lorraine remained standing. Tyler kept looking between his mother and Grandma Eleanor, trying to understand why the woman who normally controlled every situation suddenly looked like she wanted to disappear. Then Grandma picked up the first document. This was written by Catherine 6 months before she died. My heart stopped. "What?" I whispered. Grandma slid the paper toward me. The handwriting was unmistakable. The neat loops. The way she crossed her letters. The tiny tilt to the right. I had seen it on birthday cards and notes tucked into lunch boxes when I was little. My mother's handwriting. 25 years disappeared in an instant. Tears filled my eyes before I even started reading. "Read it out loud," Grandma said gently. My hand shook as I unfolded the page. The room watched me. I cleared my throat. Then I began. "If you are reading this, it means I was right to be worried." Silence filled the room. I have spent months noticing things that do not make sense. Conversations that stop when I enter rooms. Financial records that do not match explanations. Promises made behind closed doors. My voice weakened. The words felt alive. As if my mother were speaking directly into the room. Directly into the future. I do not know how much time I have left. But if something happens to me, I want Andrea to know that none of this was her fault. My chest tightened. Across the table, Lorraine's face looked pale. Tyler stared at the letter. My father looked completely stunned. "Continue," Grandma said softly. I swallowed hard. If Lorraine ever tries to convince people otherwise, she is lying. Gasps echoed through the room. Lorraine slammed her hand onto the table. "That is enough." Nobody moved. Nobody listened. Because for the first time in 25 years, my mother had a voice again. "Sit down," Grandma said calmly. Lorraine remained standing. "This is ridiculous." "Then let her finish." Lorraine looked toward my father. "Robert." My father did not move. He looked frozen. "Robert," she repeated. Still nothing. I continued reading. "I have left copies of financial records, letters, and documents with Eleanor. She promised not to reveal them unless someone attempted to erase Andrea's rights or Catherine's wishes regarding the house." My eyes widened. The house. The entire room seemed to lean forward. "Mom?" I whispered to myself. Grandma slowly nodded. "Keep reading." The house on Birch Lane was purchased before my marriage. It was inherited from my parents and legally protected through a trust established before Andrea was born. The room exploded with confusion. Tyler stood up. "What?" Lorraine immediately interrupted. "That trust was dissolved." Grandma smiled coldly. "Was it?" Lorraine's expression told me everything. According to the documents Catherine left behind, Grandma continued, the trust was never dissolved. Silence. Absolute silence. Tyler looked toward his mother. "Mom?" No answer. "Mom?" Tyler asked again. Lorraine sat down slowly. For the first time in my entire life, she looked small. "That is impossible," my father said. His voice sounded distant. "I signed paperwork." "You signed paperwork presented by Lorraine." Grandma reached into the envelope and removed another document. Unfortunately for her, Catherine also kept copies. My father stared at the papers. No, yes. Grandma pushed the document toward him. Read the date. His hand shook as he picked it up. Then his face lost color. 2 months after Catherine died. Nobody spoke. My father looked physically ill. I did not know. I believe that, Grandma replied. You rarely knew what Lorraine was doing. Lorraine suddenly stood again. This is absurd. Is it? Grandma asked. Then explain why Catherine's trust documents vanished immediately after her funeral. Lorraine opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Tyler looked horrified. Not angry. Horrified. Because for the first time, he realized this conversation might affect him personally. Wait, he said. Are you saying the house is not Dad's? Nobody answered immediately. Then Grandma looked directly at him. I am saying your mother has spent 25 years hoping nobody would ask the right questions. The room fell silent again. I looked down at my mother's letter. My fingers traced her handwriting. 25 years. 25 years she had anticipated something like this. 25 years Grandma had protected her wishes. Then Grandma reached back into the envelope and removed one final sealed document. This one was different. Older. Thicker. And across the front, written in my mother's handwriting, were 6 words that made Lorraine nearly collapse back into her chair. For Andrea on the day the truth is revealed. The sealed letter sat in Grandma Eleanor's hands while the room descended into chaos. My aunt was asking questions. Tyler was demanding answers. My father kept staring at the trust documents as though they might suddenly change if he looked hard enough. Lorraine sat perfectly still. That frightened me more than anything. People panic when they lose control unexpectedly. Lorraine was not panicking. She was calculating. Open it, Tyler said. Nobody responded. If there is some secret, then open it. Grandma looked at him calmly. Be careful what you ask for. Why? Because some truths change everything. Tyler laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. But the confidence from earlier was gone. Everyone could hear it. Grandma turned toward me and held out the letter. This belongs to you. My hand shook as I accepted it. The envelope felt fragile. 25 years old. Sealed by my mother. Protected all this time. I cannot, I whispered. Yes, you can. My father finally looked up. Andrea. His voice sounded broken. Read it. For the first time that evening, he seemed desperate to know the truth. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small folded document. I unfolded the letter first. The room became silent. My dearest Andrea, I read. Tears immediately blurred my vision. I stopped. Took a breath. Started again. If you are reading this, then someone has finally forced the truth into the light. Nobody moved. I prayed this day would never come. But if it does, I need you to know something before anyone else tells the story for me. My chest tightened. Across the table, Lorraine closed her eyes. You were the greatest joy of my life. The words hit harder than anything else. For a moment, I was 7 years old again. Sitting beside my mother in the garden. Listening to her laugh. Feeling safe. Andrea, if this letter has been opened, then it means people are questioning where you belong. I stopped reading. The room felt smaller. Colder. Continue, Grandma said softly. I nodded. You belong exactly where you have always belonged. My voice trembled. You are my daughter. Nothing can change that. Relief washed through me so suddenly it almost hurt. Then confusion followed. If that was the secret, why was Lorraine terrified? Why did Tyler keep looking at his mother like she was hiding something? I continued reading. The people who may try to hurt you will focus on the wrong question. My eyes moved down the page. They will ask whether you belong in this family. Silence. The real question is whether everyone else has been telling the truth. The room froze. Even Grandma looked emotional. Mom, I whispered. Then I reached the next paragraph. My heart nearly stopped. 2 months before my diagnosis, I discovered documents that suggested Tyler's biological father was not the man Lorraine claimed. The room exploded. Chairs scraped across the floor. Someone gasped loudly. My aunt covered her mouth. Tyler stood so quickly his chair tipped backward. What? Lorraine's face lost every trace of color. No, she whispered. No, my father looked completely stunned. What did you just read? I stared at the page. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Mom believed Tyler's biological father was someone else. Tyler turned toward Lorraine. Mom? Lorraine stood abruptly. This is insane. Mom. A dying woman wrote a letter 25 years ago. Mom. Tyler shouted. Silence followed. Real silence. The kind that arrives when everyone suddenly realizes they have entered territory nobody can leave unchanged. My father looked at Lorraine. Tell me she is wrong. Lorraine said nothing. Tell me she is wrong. Still nothing. Then Grandma slowly reached into the envelope and removed the folded document that had accompanied the letter. Because Catherine did not stop with suspicions. Nobody breathed. She collected evidence. Lorraine looked like she might faint. Eleanor, no. Grandma unfolded the paper. 25 years is long enough. My stomach dropped as I saw the heading. Laboratory report. Paternity analysis. Dated 25 years earlier. Tyler stared at it. My father stared at it. The entire room stared at it. Then Grandma placed it on the table and said the words that changed Easter forever. Catherine never intended to reveal this unless someone tried to take her daughter's inheritance. She looked directly at Lorraine. You should have left the house alone. The paternity report sat in the center of the Easter table while nobody spoke. 25 years of assumptions had just collided with a single piece of paper. Tyler stared at it without touching it. Lorraine looked trapped. My father looked like a man discovering that half his memories might belong to someone else's story. Finally, Tyler grabbed the report. This is fake. His voice was too loud. Too fast. It has to be fake. He scanned the first page. Then the second. Then he stopped talking entirely. I watched the color drain from his face. Tyler? My father asked. No answer. Tyler. He slowly lowered the document. Mom. Lorraine closed her eyes. Do not. Tell me this is fake. Silence. Tell me. More silence. And in that silence, everyone received their answer. My aunt sat down heavily. One of my cousins quietly left the room. My father looked at Lorraine with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger. Not sadness. Betrayal. How long? He asked. Lorraine opened her eyes. Robert, how long? She looked around the room. Searching for an escape. There was none. 26 years, she whispered. Nobody moved. 26 years? My father's voice cracked. You knew? Lorraine nodded once. The room seemed to tilt. Even Tyler looked stunned. You knew? He repeated. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? Lorraine's eyes filled with tears. From losing your family. Tyler laughed bitterly. Apparently that worked out great. Nobody interrupted. Nobody defended her. Because for the first time, the consequences belonged entirely to Lorraine. Then Grandma Eleanor spoke. "There is more." Every head turned toward her. "More?" my father asked. Grandma picked up another document. The paternity report was not what Catherine considered most important. My stomach tightened. Then what was? Grandma handed me a folded page. "Read the next letter." There was another letter. Another page written in my mother's handwriting. I unfolded it carefully. "If you have reached this part," I read, "then the truth about Tyler has already come out." My voice trembled. "What I need Andrea to understand is that Tyler was never the reason I created the trust." The room became silent again. The trust exists because I knew someone might eventually try to separate my daughter from her inheritance. I looked toward Lorraine. She looked away immediately. "I do not blame Tyler," I continued reading. "He did not choose the circumstances of his birth." Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "But I do blame the adults who lied." Nobody breathed. Especially the adults who treated Andrea as though she mattered less. My throat tightened. Memories flooded back all at once. Birthdays where Tyler received expensive gifts while I received practical ones. Family vacations planned around Tyler's interests. College tuition discussions where my future somehow cost too much. Tiny moments that seemed unrelated until you stacked them together. Then they became a pattern. "Mom knew," I whispered. "Of course she knew," Grandma replied softly. "She saw everything." My father covered his face with both hands. For years I imagined what it would feel like if he finally understood. I expected satisfaction. Vindication. Relief. Instead I felt sad. Because understanding 25 years too late still means 25 years too late. Then Tyler spoke. His voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. "Did you hate me?" He was looking at the letter in my hands. Looking at my mother through her words. I continued reading. "If Tyler is there when this letter is opened, tell him something for me." Everyone froze. "Tell him I never blamed him." Tyler stared at the page. Tears rolled down his face. "A child is not responsible for the choices adults make." Silence. I only hoped he would grow into a better man than the people who lied to him. Nobody moved. Tyler sat down slowly. The arrogance. The confidence. The entitlement. All of it seemed gone. Replaced by something else. Confusion. Grief. Maybe even shame. Then my father looked at me. Really looked at me. For perhaps the first time in years. "Andrea." His voice broke. "I failed you." The room went silent again. Because everybody knew he was right. The truth about Tyler's father was shocking. But the truth about my childhood hurt even more. And for the first time, nobody could pretend they had not seen it. Nobody touched the Easter dinner after that. The ham cooled. The rolls hardened. Half-filled glasses sat forgotten across the table. 25 years of family history had become more important than the meal itself. My father remained seated with his hands clasped together. Lorraine stared out the dining room window. Tyler looked exhausted. And I sat there holding letters written by a woman who somehow understood exactly what would happen long after she was gone. Finally, Grandma Eleanor broke the silence. "There is one last document." Everyone looked up immediately. Lorraine closed her eyes. "Please." It was the first time all evening she sounded afraid instead of defensive. Grandma ignored her. Catherine left instructions regarding the house. My pulse quickened. The house had started all of this. The house was the reason Grandma opened the envelope. The house was the reason my mother's secrets finally saw daylight. Grandma unfolded the final document and handed it to my father. "Read it." His hands trembled as he accepted the paper. For several seconds he simply stared at it. Then he began reading aloud. In the event of my death, the Birch Lane property shall remain protected under the Wallace Family Trust until Andrea Wallace reaches adulthood. He stopped. Swallowed hard. Continued. Upon reaching adulthood, Andrea Wallace becomes the sole beneficiary of the property and all associated trust protections. The room went silent. My father stared at the page. No, Grandma nodded. Yes. Lorraine immediately stood. That cannot be enforced. It already was. 25 years ago. Exactly. Lorraine looked desperate. The trust paperwork disappeared. Grandma smiled sadly. The originals disappeared. She pointed toward the stack of documents. The certified copies did not. My aunt leaned forward. Are you saying Andrea owns the house? Grandma took a deep breath. I am saying Catherine intended Andrea to inherit the house. Completely. Nobody spoke. Tyler stared at me. The entire house? Yes. Not half? No, not shared? No, silence again. The truth landed differently than the paternity report. The paternity report shattered assumptions. This shattered expectations. For 25 years everyone assumed the house would eventually pass through my father. Then Tyler. Then whoever came after him. Nobody imagined my mother had quietly protected it for me all along. Why did nobody know? I asked. Grandma looked at me gently. Because Catherine stopped trusting the people around her. The answer hurt. Not because it surprised me. Because it did not. Then my father stood up abruptly. He walked toward the kitchen. Nobody followed him. Several minutes passed before he returned carrying something old and dusty. A small wooden panel. The doorframe, he said quietly. Everyone looked confused except me. My stomach tightened immediately. The kitchen doorframe. The pencil marks. My father placed the panel on the dining table. Years earlier, during a kitchen renovation, a contractor removed part of the original frame. My father had stored it in the garage. Forgotten. Or so we thought. Across the wood were tiny pencil marks. Andrea, age 5. Andrea, age 6. Andrea, age 7. Each one with a star beside it. My mother's handwriting. The room became silent again. My father ran his fingers across the marks. I kept this. He looked at me. I did not even know why. Tears filled my eyes. For all his failures, some small part of him had been protecting something. Maybe because he loved my mother once. Maybe because he loved me. Maybe because memories survive even when people fail them. Then he looked toward Lorraine. Did you know about the trust? Lorraine said nothing. Did you know? Her silence answered the question. How long? He asked. Robert, how long? She looked away. Since the beginning. The room exploded with disbelief. My aunt gasped. Tyler stared at his mother in horror. My father simply nodded once. Slowly. Like a man watching the last piece of a puzzle fall into place. 25 years, he whispered. 25 years. Then he turned toward me. Andrea. I looked up. I am hiring an attorney tomorrow morning. The room froze. Dad? Tyler said. My father did not look at him. Your mother wanted the house protected. He looked at the trust documents. Then at the pencil marks. Then at me. And for the first time in a very long time, I intend to honor her wishes. Lorraine's face went white. Because everyone in the room suddenly understood the same thing. The secret was no longer the story. The consequences were. The next morning, my father kept his word. At 8:30, he called an attorney. By noon, copies of the trust documents had been reviewed. By 3 o'clock, Lorraine was no longer pretending everything would simply disappear. For 25 years she had controlled the narrative. Now the documents were controlling it instead. I spent most of that day walking through the Birch Lane house alone. The Easter dinner had ended in chaos, but the house remained strangely peaceful. Sunlight still fell through the kitchen windows exactly the way it did when I was a child. The hardwood floors still creaked near the staircase. The pencil marks on the old doorframe sat on the dining table waiting to be preserved. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine the house as something other than a battlefield. Around 4 o'clock, my father arrived. He looked exhausted. Older somehow. Like one night had added a decade to his life. The attorney confirmed everything, he said. I nodded. And? He sat at the kitchen table. The trust is valid. Hearing the words out loud felt surreal. Not because I wanted the house. Because my mother had been telling the truth all along. Lorraine knows? I asked. My father laughed once. Bitterly. Lorraine hired her own attorney. That was fast. Apparently she expected this possibility. That sentence lingered between us. Expected this possibility. Meaning she knew exactly what she had done. My father stared out the window. I spent 25 years defending her. I said nothing. Some realizations deserve silence. Do you know what hurts most? He asked. What? He looked around the kitchen. I thought I was protecting this family. His voice cracked. I was helping someone destroy it. I wanted to be angry. Maybe part of me still was. But looking at him then, I mostly saw regret. Heavy. Genuine. Unavoidable regret. Before either of us could say anything else, a car pulled into the driveway. Tyler. My stomach tightened immediately. My father noticed too. He called earlier, he said. What does he want? To talk. Tyler entered the house a few moments later. Gone was the confidence from Easter dinner. Gone was the smug smile. He looked exhausted. Like someone who had not slept. Andrea. I nodded politely. Tyler. Silence followed. Then he did something I never expected. He apologized. I was wrong. I blinked. About what? He laughed sadly. Where do I start? Neither of us spoke. Tyler looked around the kitchen. The same kitchen where he spent years receiving attention I could only dream about. When I said you were never part of the family, his voice weakened. That was cruel. I watched him carefully. Yes. I know. He nodded. And I think part of me always knew it was not true. My father remained silent. Listening. I grew up believing certain things, Tyler continued. Mom always told me you were difficult. Ungrateful. That everyone had to make sacrifices because of you. I laughed softly. Interesting. I know. Tyler looked ashamed. The problem is that if someone tells you the same story long enough, eventually you stop questioning it. That was probably the most honest thing anyone had said in years. Then Tyler reached into his jacket and placed a folder on the table. What is this? I asked. The development agreement. My eyes widened. The same agreement Lorraine planned to use. The same agreement attached to the house transfer. Why are you giving this to me? Tyler pushed the folder forward. Because I am not signing it. Silence. Tyler, I am serious. He looked at the trust documents. Then at the old doorframe. Then at me. The house was your mother's. His voice cracked. And she wanted it to be yours. My father looked stunned. Frankly, so did I. Tyler sighed deeply. Do you know what the worst part of all this is? Nobody answered. I spent my entire life believing I was winning. He laughed bitterly. Turns out I was just being used. The room fell silent again. For the first time, I saw Tyler clearly. Not as the golden child. Not as the enemy. Just another person shaped by someone else's lies. Then my phone rang. Grandma Eleanor. I answered immediately. Grandma? Turn on the television. My stomach dropped. Why? Because Lorraine just made a very big mistake. My father found the television remote first. Within seconds, every person in the Birch Lane house was standing in the living room staring at the screen. A local news station logo appeared in the corner. And there was Lorraine. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. Perfectly confident. Or at least she had been confident when the interview started. The reporter stood beside her in front of a proposed residential development site. A banner beneath the screen read, "Local Development Project Faces Community Questions." My stomach tightened immediately. Why is she doing interviews? Tyler asked. Nobody answered. Then Lorraine began speaking. Our family has been discussing future plans regarding a property that will likely become available soon. The room froze. My father slowly sat down. Tyler looked horrified. I looked at the screen and suddenly understood exactly why Grandma had called. Lorraine thought she was promoting a real estate project. Instead, she was documenting her intentions. Publicly. No, Tyler whispered. The interview continued. The property has been part of our family for years, Lorraine said. And we believe it would be irresponsible not to maximize its value. Maximize its value. Not preserve it. Not honor family history. Not respect Catherine's wishes. Maximize its value. My father covered his face. The reporter asked another question. Has ownership already been finalized? Lorraine smiled confidently. Essentially, yes. The room exploded. She said what? My aunt shouted. Essentially? My father stood up so quickly he nearly knocked over a chair. Ownership was never finalized. Tyler stared at the television in disbelief. Mom knew. Nobody disagreed. Because now everyone could see it. The interviews. The development contract. The pressure campaign at Easter. The house transfer. None of it had been spontaneous. It had been planned. Then the reporter asked one final question. A question that changed everything. Some family members have expressed concerns. Lorraine laughed lightly. There is always one person who causes problems. Silence filled the room. Every eye turned toward me. Lorraine had not used my name. She did not need to. Everyone knew exactly who she meant. Then the interview ended. The screen shifted back to the newsroom. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Finally Tyler broke the silence. She already promised them the property. My father nodded slowly. Yes. Without owning it. Yes. Tyler sat down heavily. Oh my God. For the first time, he sounded less angry than embarrassed. The truth was becoming impossible to avoid. Lorraine had not just lied to the family. She had built an entire future around an assumption that was never hers to make. An hour later, the phone started ringing. Relatives. Neighbors. Friends. People who attended Easter dinner. Everyone wanted answers. My father ignored most of the calls. Then, around 7 that evening, Lorraine finally came home. The moment she walked through the front door, she stopped. The atmosphere told her everything. Tyler stood near the fireplace. My father sat at the kitchen table. I stood beside Grandma Eleanor. Nobody looked happy to see her. What happened? She asked. My father pointed toward the television. You tell me. Lorraine's face changed immediately. Robert, no, his voice cut through the room. You knew about the trust. Silence. You knew about Catherine's wishes. More silence. And you tried to sell the house anyway. Lorraine looked around desperately. Nobody rescued her. Not Tyler. Not my father. Not anyone. For perhaps the first time in 25 years, she was standing alone. I did what I thought was best for the family. The statement landed horribly. Tyler laughed bitterly. Which family? Lorraine turned toward him. Tyler. No, he shook his head. Do not do that. She looked stunned. I was trying to help you. You were using me. Silence. Real silence. The kind that arrives when someone finally says the thing everyone else already knows. My father stood slowly. The attorneys have confirmed everything. Lorraine closed her eyes. Robert. The house belongs to Andrea. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. And I intend to make sure your mother's wishes are honored. He was looking at me now. Not Lorraine. Not Tyler. Me. For the first time in decades, I was not standing outside the story. I was standing in the center of it. Then Grandma Eleanor smiled softly. Catherine waited 25 years for this day. I looked around the house. The kitchen. The staircase. The pencil marks. The memories. The truth. Everything felt different now. Not because the secrets were gone. Because they finally had nowhere left to hide. 1 year later, the yellow tulips were blooming again. Every spring, my mother planted them along the front walkway of the Birch Lane house. For years, they disappeared beneath Lorraine's landscaping plans, gravel projects, and renovation ideas. Now they were back. Bright. Defiant. Impossible to ignore. I stood on the front porch holding a cup of coffee and watched the morning sun spread across the garden. The house was quiet. Peaceful. No attorneys. No arguments. No secrets waiting inside envelopes. Just a home. Something it had not felt like in a very long time. The legal process took months. Longer than anyone wanted. The trust held up exactly as Grandma Eleanor said it would. Every certified document. Every letter. Every instruction my mother left behind. In the end, ownership of the Birch Lane property was formally transferred according to the trust. Exactly as Catherine Wallace intended 25 years earlier. Lorraine fought it. Of course she did. But facts proved harder to manipulate than people. Eventually even her attorneys advised her to stop. The development company quietly withdrew. The television interview did not help her case. Neither did the paperwork she had signed before obtaining legal ownership. By the time everything ended, the story had become local gossip. Then local history. Then nothing at all. Funny how quickly people move on from scandals that once felt enormous. Tyler moved away 6 months after Easter. Not because anyone forced him to. Because he needed distance. We spoke occasionally now. Not often. But honestly. The first time he visited after the settlement, he stood in the kitchen staring at the pencil marks preserved behind protective glass. Your mom really loved you, he said. I smiled. Yes. He nodded slowly. I think she would have loved me too. The statement surprised me. Then I remembered the letter. A child is not responsible for the choices adults make. I think so too, I told him. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Then Tyler laughed softly. You know what is strange? What? For years I thought this house represented something I deserved. He looked around the room. Turns out it was never about ownership. He was right. It was about memory. Identity. Truth. The things people cannot transfer with paperwork. My father changed more than anyone expected. The first few months were difficult. Shame has a way of making people disappear if they are not careful. But instead of retreating, he stayed. He showed up. Every Sunday afternoon, he came over for coffee. Sometimes we talked about Mom. Sometimes we talked about work. Sometimes we sat in silence watching birds in the backyard. Healing turned out to be less dramatic than movies suggest. It looked a lot like consistency. Grandma Eleanor lived long enough to see everything resolved. That mattered most. On her 80th birthday, we held a family gathering in the Birch Lane house. A real family gathering. No hidden agendas. No paperwork. No manipulation. Just people sharing stories. At one point, I found Grandma standing near the tulips. "You were right," I told her. She smiled. "About what?" The truth eventually finding its way home. Her eyes moved toward the front garden. "Your mother knew that too." 6 months later, Grandma passed away peacefully in her sleep. We found a short note among her belongings addressed to me. It contained only one sentence. "Protect what matters." I framed it beside my mother's letter. Today, both hang in the upstairs reading room. The room Lorraine once planned to renovate. The room my mother loved most. Sometimes visitors ask whether I ever regretted exposing the secret. Whether revealing the paternity report was worth the damage it caused. The answer is simple. The secret was already causing damage. The truth merely stopped pretending otherwise. That Easter, my family tried to give my mother's house to my brother. They thought they were transferring property. Instead, they uncovered 25 years of lies. They expected paperwork. They found proof. They expected silence. They found my mother waiting for them across a quarter century. And in the end, the most important thing she left behind was not a trust. Not a house. Not even a secret. It was a message. A reminder that love does not disappear because someone tries to rewrite the story. My parents gave the family home to my brother at Easter. Grandma's 25-year secret changed everything. But what truly survived was something much stronger than secrets. The truth. And like the yellow tulips outside my front door, it eventually came back exactly where it belonged.